Good evening, everybody. So I'm Tony Porter from A Call to Men. So I'm one of the co-founders of A Call to Men. We're based out in New York City, and I'm here to hang out with y'all for about an hour or so and just have a conversation about manhood, what it means to be a man and where we're at, how we're doing, and where we're struggling. How does it relate to what we're talking about here with domestic and sexual violence prevention. So I'm going to talk primarily to the men. I see a lot of men here, so that's good effort on those who organized this event. I'm going to primarily talk to the men. The title says Real Men, Real Talk. So I'm going to ask the women to be good with that, to be okay with that. We will hear your voice, and we'll actually have women speak after me, but I'm going to ask you to let me talk to the men. All right, women, y'all good with that? All right? Okay. Because if you're good with that, that means that you can't answer for the men when I ask them a question. So are you really good with that? No oops and all of that. Just let me talk to the men, all right? All right, cool. So why is it important for me to talk to the men? Well, the reality is, if my outstretched arms represented all the men in the United States of America, there's about this many that perpetrate violence against women, 15% or so, and then there's all the rest of us. I'm going to comfortably assume that the men in this room are part of this group. All right, that we're part of this group. Women, the second wave of the women's movement, which has been addressing violence against women, other issues of equality, but violence against women has been a part of that. They've taken us quite a ways here. So, we have more men being held accountable than ever before for violence. We have we have good services for those who have been victimized by violence. But the truth of the matter is, with all that being said, the violence in of itself is not declining. So men are being held accountable, services are here for those who've been victimized, but the violence is not declining. That's what we really want to see happen, is the violence to decline. What we've come to realize is that, well, if women can end the violence by themselves, of course, it'd be over, right? We can't depend on these guys. Though we have hope for them, we can't depend on them. So who's left out of that equation is us. We call us well-meaning men, righteous men, good guys, everyday cats, just trying to do the right thing. We'll have some fun, but for the most part, as my friends, back in Harlem would say, just holding it down, man, just trying to make it one day at a time, right? Just trying to do what we got to do. That's most of us. That's most of us. But with all that being said, the question I want to ask the men here to grapple with, to struggle with, to be with me right now on is, how is it that this many men get to do what they do to women in the presence of all of us good men? Now, we say a small amount of men in comparison to the rest of us. What we're not saying is a small amount of violence. Center for Disease Control, as we know, who primarily deal with health issues and health-related issues, well, they've taken this on because they said men's violence against women is the #1 health concern for women in the United States of America. Over 33% of all emergency room visits are a result of men's violence against women. 1 out of 6 women will be raped. 1 out of 4 women during her 4 years on the college campus will be sexually assaulted. Well over 1 million women will be sexually assaulted a year. And if you think those numbers are staggering, domestic violence is about 4 times higher. 1 out of 6 women will be raped. Well, that's a mainstream number. What does mainstream mean as it relates to this conversation? It means white, middle-class Christian women. You add women of color to that, you add financially poor women to that from any group, and it's more like 1 out of 4 will be raped. We'll talk about value in women and how that connects. And 75% of those women will be the age of 25 years old or younger, which means many of them are girls. So it's not a small amount of violence. It's a tremendous amount of violence. It's just a small amount of men in comparison to all the rest of us. We as men have to begin, you heard Kurt mention it, we have to begin to grapple with how is it that this many dudes do what they do to women in the presence of all of us good men. Now, in the presence doesn't mean that we were there when it happened, but in the presence does mean that we are well aware that it is happening. Why are we not outraged? Because I know we're not cool with the violence. I also want to say, because the majority of the men in this room, I'm old enough to be their dads. I see a few old dudes in here, but the majority of the men in this room, I'm old enough to be their dad. So when I bring this to you, I also bring apologies, because somebody should have been having this conversation with me. Somebody should have been having this conversation with you a long time ago. And I'm not saying you individually it didn't happen, but we collectively know it has not happened. So I'm not bringing this to you necessarily saying that you're doing something wrong. I'm bringing this to you more saying, men in my generation, we really haven't carried this torch like we needed to. And I'm bringing it to you and I'm handing it to you. And once you know, you know. So this is not a conversation about what young men are doing wrong. This is more of a conversation about where we as men collectively need to be and why we surely need you. Surely need you. As you heard me mention, the large majority of violence is happening to young women. We need you. So, again, we know that we're not okay with the violence. So we really have to begin to have some conversations about us as men. So I'm going to come down here. I need to be closer to the men. We need to really begin to have some conversations and struggle together as what's really going on with us, that this is happening in our presence. I want to ask you all in the room, particularly the men, I want to ask you to envision the world while we're having this conversation. Envision the world, particularly you young men, that you want to see for your daughters. Let's say 25 years from now, you may have a daughter sitting in the seat right here or at another college campus. How do you want to see men acting and behaving? What would you want to see from men? Be it your granddaughter, for some of us older guys. What do you want to see from men? How would you want to see men acting and behaving when she comes of age? What kind of man you want your son to be? When we see ourselves as men, we usually want to stretch it out just a little further for our sons. Look at where you're at. Think about it. What kind of man do you want your son to be? These are questions I want to ask you to grapple with as we have this conversation. And then, again, by all means, stay focused on how is it that this many men do what they do to women in the presence of all of us good men. So women, as I was saying, I want to talk to the men some. All right? So what we're going to do, men, is we're going to do a little deconstructing. Somebody tell me what the word deconstruct means. What does deconstruct mean? Take apart. What does deconstruct mean? To break down. I like that. We're going to just break it down. We're going to do some breaking down of manhood. All right? I also want to say to the men, as I move up and down the aisles, because I know your expectation was I was going to be at that podium. No, I'm not. And as I move up and down the aisles, look right at me. Stare me down. I may then go to the next man. If you look away, I am surely going to call on you. Not that that's a bad thing, because this is a conversation we can have, and we can have it in the presence of women. So we're going to break down manhood. We're going to do some deconstructing of manhood, and we have a quick, simple, easy way at a call to men to do this, and we call it the man box. All right? So I want to ask the men in the room, to envision a box. All right? Envision a box, and then what we're going to do, we're going to first fill it up with the ingredients of how we've come to define manhood. We're going to fill it up with what I've taught you. I'm 54 years old, so well over 2/3 of the room here, I'm old enough to be your dad. We're going to break it down as to what I taught you. When I say I represent the men who have taught you so much about being a man. And it's not all been just, one-on-one conversations. We've taught you in a whole host of ways. Some things good, some things not so good. We've been on remote control for a long time. We really need to have conversations where we're making conscious choices in how we're thinking, acting, and behaving. So let's do some deconstructing of the man box. All right? Envision a box, and let's work with those ingredients in that box. All right? So let's talk about, now, keep in mind, whatever you share is not like an indictment on you and how you think or act and behave. It's on me. It's what I've taught you. And it's still not what you may do. It's more about how we know men collectively act and behave. So come on, talk to me. Don't hold back. This is about how we know men to be. Okay? So don't be afraid to just tell the truth. So when we think about this man box, all right, when we think about this man box, sir, what is one of the, basic tenets, really important principle of this man box is men must be what? Strong. Men must be strong. Appreciate you. Men must be strong, even though a lot of times we ain't strong. Is that true? And when we ain't strong, what do? Work
out.
We work out. Do we always work out when we're not strong? So you're talking about physical strength, by the way. You say we work out, right? Do you work out on a regular basis? Sometimes. All right. So when you're not strong, though, right, what do you do when you're not strong? Do you say I'm not strong?
No.
So what do? You
correct it.
You correct it. All right. I think a lot of times, I appreciate you, but a lot of times, you know how we correct it? We fake it. We front. That's how younger people say a little more. Like we front. We pretend. We lie. And we're not always talking about physical strength. All kinds of situations that are defined in strength. There are a lot of times I'm weak. I'm weak. But I got to pretend like I'm strong based on the teachings of this man box. So men must be strong. And the opposite of strong, sir, is what? What's the opposite of strong for us as men? Weak. And who do we as men, collectively speaking, not you, not me, but we, who do we collectively speaking reserve being weak for? Who's weak?
Who's weak?
Yes, who's weak? Women are weak. We could say it. We act it out every day. We might as well say it if we're going to have any opportunity to deal with it. Women are weak. Men are strong. The opposite of strong is weak, and women are weak. And because women are weak, we do everything humanly possible to at least appear strong. Because the last thing we want to do is be viewed as who? As women. And who do we put in that same place with women? Who do we put in the same place with women? That was a question, yeah. Who do we put in that place with women? Children, sort of, kind of, but not necessarily. You was answering for them? You, okay, well, since it ain't children, who is it? Well, okay, but take another guess. Gay men. We put gay men in the same place that we put women. This man box is extremely homophobic. It's the glue that actually keeps it together. It's extremely homophobic. Now, check this out. Now, gay men are men. And gay men got a lot of man box stuff going on. But they are also victimized severely by this box as well at the same time. But don't shortchange the fact that they're still men. So, the box says Men must be strong, women are weak. What does the box say about feelings and emotions? What does the box say about feelings and emotions, sir? Hide them. So in other words, you're saying we do have them. Because you said we hide them, right? How do we hide them then, sir? You don't show them. And why don't we show them?
It shows weakness.
Because it shows weakness. And who's weak? Women are weak. So we work real hard as men not to show emotions. Not to show emotions. All right, at what age? What age is it more common that a boy is no longer okay for a boy to cry in public? Around what age? 10. 10? That's pretty good, 10. And actually, if you still crying in public at 10, the good thing about that is you probably have some fairly decent emotional skills. You know what I mean? You kind of like know how to deal with your emotions, because the average age is probably about what? What time? When was you no longer crying in public? About what age? You still cry in public? It's all right. I don't know if I believe you, but that's all right. You do? Good for you, man. Good for, stand up, turn around, take a bow. Go on. Stand up and turn around and take a bow. All right. All right, as a norm, sir, what age did you stop crying in public?
Probably about 4.
About 4. And we say somewhere around 5. School bus age, right? Where we start cutting off emotions with boys. So at home I have Kendall and Jade. They're 12 and 13 years old. Now Kendall's only 15 months older than Jade. He's born October the 7th, she's born December the 3rd. There's just, my wife, her name is Tammy. And there was just this, just brief moment in time where it was just like whip, whip, boom. I don't know what was going on with us. Whip, whip, boom, boom, boom. Bam, came Kendall. And Jade was so fast behind him, I don't really think we was even supposed to be doing it yet, because she was like, boom. So he's not that much older than her. But now when they were about 4 and 5 years old, Jade could come to me crying, and it didn't matter what she was crying about. That was not important. That was totally irrelevant. She could get on my knee, and she could just cry it out. Only thing that was important was Daddy got you, right? Kendall, on the other hand, it's like the moment I heard him crying, a clock would go off, right? I don't care where he was at in the house, a clock would go off. How much time would I give him about? 30 seconds. Bam, that's it. That's my number, man, 30 seconds. You have a daughter. 30 seconds, which means that by the time he got to me, his time was up. So he doesn't get on the knee. And I'm saying things like, hold your head up. What's wrong? Talk to me. I can't understand you while you're crying. Stop crying and explain to me what's wrong. Tell me what's wrong. It's called control. That's how we as men are. We have to be in control. About being logical, very logical. Explain. I can't understand you while you're crying, so stop crying and talk to me. And by the way, I'm yelling, right? And out of my own frustration and fear that he's not going to live up to the standards of how we define manhood, collectively speaking, I may find myself saying things like, well, just go in your room, go ahead, in your room, sit down, get yourself together, which means get in control. Because men are in control, women are out of control. Right? Men don't get hysterical. We might lose our temper, but we don't get hysterical. We are in control. Go in a room, get yourself together, and come back and talk to me when you could talk to me like a what? like a man. Boy, 5, 6 years old. Just cutting emotions and feelings off, right? So Jay, she can have a whole wealth of experiences and emotions. Him, actually, we only allow him to have one emotion. What's the emotion that's okay for him to have? Anger. I heard it, anger. So think about that. Men must be tough, strong, athletic, courageous, and the only emotion they can experience that's okay with us is anger. Sounds like a recipe for disaster. All right? But that's how we're collectively socialized. Let's go to a few pictures up here. What we're doing right now, remember, we're deconstructing manhood because we're trying to figure out how is it that this many men do what they do to women in the presence of all of us good men. Now keep in mind, this conversation is really about us good men. We ain't really talking about them. We're talking about us. So, do I have any, I know this is a big athletic college here. I know you love your basketball. Any basketball players here on the basketball team? I know some of y'all shoot a little bit. All right. So I don't know, nobody from the basketball team is here, huh? But you raise your hand. You ball a little bit? That's cool. You haven't had try? Oh, so you'll be trying out for the team. All right, I'm going to be looking for you. All right. So, but do I have any football historians here? Anybody here really know football? I didn't ask you, did you play? I asked you, did you know it? All right, brother here knows, the man over there knows it. He looks like a sports analyst. Let me go to this guy over here, and I want you too. All right, okay, I'm going to come to all three of y'all. Y'all can all give me a little bit. Starts with you, sir. You're a football historian? Little bit. Football historians don't say a little bit. They say yes. All right. Who's that up in the corner there? Jim Brown. All right. Tell me one fact about Jim Brown. He retired at the height of his success. Okay, historian, tell me something else about Jim Brown.
He played for the Cleveland Browns.
Future politician here. All right. Come on, man. Tell me something about Jim Brown. He's one of the greatest of all time. All right. Tell me something else here. You're out of Jim Brown story. You got anything?
Yeah. He held a rushing record for a long while.
All right. Okay. So he's one of the best football players ever, one of the greatest running backs ever. All right. Appreciate you historians. The bigger question is, this is what we call like a man box picture here. So Jim Brown, tough football player. Crazy Mike Tyson over there. Tony Soprano ruling his square block, right? Who's in the picture that kind of sticks out like a square thumb, sort of kind? Who is that? Bill Gates. But he belongs, though, nevertheless, don't he? Why does he belong?
He's a man.
He's the man, and what else? Money, success, and we as men equate money and success with what? Power, right? Power, all right? We have a lot of respect for power, all right? So he kind of fits. Now, there's somebody else in that picture, used to be a platinum card carrying member of the Man Box, and we kicked him out of the club for a while. He's back now. Y'all know who he is, who we kicked out? Who's in there that we kicked out? What did I hear? The Rock. You don't like The Rock no more. You like Dwayne. We kicked him out, right? Now, let me ask the women. Women, why did we kick him out? Why did we men kick him out? Some of y'all might have kicked him out too because y'all got man box stuff going on, by the way, simply because we live in a male-dominating society, and so women will absorb a lot of our cultural norms. They'll teach it to their sons real quick. Teach it to their sons real quick. They're not teaching it to their sons necessarily because it's right. They're teaching it to their sons because they know it's what we as men demand. But women, tell us, what was it about The Rock. He was a platinum card carrying member of the Man Box, shoot 'em up, bang, bang movies, big time wrestler, all of that. And then we kicked him out of the club. Women, why did we kick him out of the club? What's that? He made a lot of children movies, right? You remember that? Tooth Fairy, right? The brother went Disney on us, right? And we kicked him out of the club. Now, I want to ask the men to be critical thinkers here. Be a critical thinker. What is critical thinking? What is critical thinking? Critical thinking is what? Thinking hard. See, you still got to put a Man Box thing on there. Thinking hard. It's a critical thinker. Got to think it hard. That makes you a critical thinker. All right? What's a critical thinker, sir? Who logically analyzes the problem. I got some real men in here. He thinks hard and he logically analyzes the problem. All right? So when the car rolls up, you kind of know the cat in the front seat, sort of kind of. You just seen the guy in the back seat here and there. And the door opens up and they say, Joe, come on, man, jump in. What does Joe then say as a critical thinker? Why should I jump in? Right? What else does Joe say as a critical thinker? Where are we going? That's a fair question, ain't it? Where are we going? Why? Where are we going? Who's that in the back seat? I don't even really know you. What's up? Right? Joe asks questions. All right? He's thinking hard. Looking for logic in this situation here. All right? Please be a critical thinker and teach other men to be critical thinkers as well. But nevertheless, more importantly, as the critical thinker you are, men, I want to ask you a question about manhood. The Rock was a platinum card carrying member of the Man Box. He went Disney on us and we kicked him out of the box. As the critical thinkers you are, what does that then say about manhood? Now this time I'm going to look for a show of hands. What does that say, men, about manhood? You heard, I broke it down, right? Tough guy, we loved him. Man Box, he's down. Does a Disney movie or two or three or four. We kick him out the Man Box Club. What does that then say about manhood? Men, just raise your hand so I can see you. Yes, sir. Manhood, excuse me? Manhood. What do you mean by that?
Well, I'm saying that he represented everything it was to be male, but the moment he starts showing a little femininity, we instantly forget everything else that made him a man.
So manhood of itself is cheap. It's not worth a lot, is what you're saying. Yeah. I can appreciate that. And the moment he did what? You said he did what? Show femininity. That's interesting. And what was he doing that was showing femininity? How about you, sir? What was he doing? No, you, sir. Yes, you. Yeah. Taking care of children. So he took care of children, and we kicked him out of the Man Box Club. What does then that say about manhood? How about you? We're not nurturers. I appreciate that you went right to that word nurture, because some of us would say, oh, we don't take care of kids, but it's way deeper than that. We're not nurturers. Y'all hear that, men? Now, I want you to think about yourself maybe just a short 5-6 years ago. Now, I could think about myself a long time ago. See, my father was about making money. That was his mission in life, make money. If he's seen us for breakfast, that was cool. He doesn't get home until when he gets home, I'm gone to sleep, might see him for breakfast, spend a little bit of time on the weekend, and then he's gone again. He's an excellent provider. And that was the extent to his role. You need something, you got everything you need, and you got quite a few things you want, bam, I'm doing a good job. Now, he loved me. Never ever said he loved me, but I knew he loved me. Nurturing. he would not know how to spell nurturing. That would not register for him at all. But do we as men need to be nurtured? Well, what would be an example of being nurtured by our dad or a man figure would be to do what? Spend time with us, play with us. What are other examples of being nurtured?
Fantasy football.
See, fantasy football is how we define nurturing. All right? Good hit, good shot, good tackle. What else? Listening. What else? What's nurturing? Talking. Now that sounds so doggone simplistic. Just talking. Just talking. Just being present. Being connected. How about a hug and a kiss, by the way, in the midst of all of that? How about a hug and a kiss in the midst of all of that? So when you become a dad, right, at what age are you going to stop kissing your son?
10 or so, probably.
10 or so. And when you become, oh, you're an old guy. Let me move on by you for a second. When you become a dad, at what age are you going to stop kissing your son? 12-ish. All right. When you become a dad, what age are you going to stop kissing your daughters?
Probably about the same.
Oh, about the same. And what age are you going to stop kissing your daughters? Never. So women, what the man there said, the never man there, that's probably the most common answer. I'm going to stop kissing my son about 10, 8. Usually they don't get to double digit, right? I'm going to kiss my daughter forever. What is that about for us? I'm asking this to the women. So we'll hug and kiss and love our daughters. There's a cutoff mark for our son. What's that about, women? What do you think? Excuse me?
I think it has to do with the
General feeling of being homophobic.
Because they're weak and they need more nurturing the whole life.
Say that again?
So if you kiss your daughter and you hug her all your life, maybe that's showing them that they're more weak and they need more caring.
Well, when you're kissing your daughters and hugging, what I'm hearing the man say is that, you know, we just have a general less value in women. So they need more of that. We have higher expectations of men. They don't need that as much.
I'd say men express love from a man to a woman by kissing. Men do not express their love to another man by kissing.
Right. So he said that's something women do, right? We do it with a woman, but we won't do it in man. I heard the homophobic. I can relate to it all. I can remember when Kendall was about 2, 3 years old. I bend down and, you know, give him a kiss goodnight, kiss him on the cheek, on the forehead or something. And then one day, I bend down to kiss him, and his head turned, and pow, we planted a big old juicy wet one right on the lips. And with all I know, it's like I staggered out of the room. And I went to my wife, Tammy, and I said, Tammy, Kendall just kissed me on the lips, but I think it was an accident. And my wife has a way of looking at me as like a combination of confusion and disgust. Anytime her head tilts, and just walks away. So I'm back to my ritual. I bend down to give him a kiss goodnight, and this time the boy looked at me right in the eye, and he's puckered up, and bam, out the room again I go. And I say, Tammy, Kendall just kissed me on the lips. And this time, I think it was on purpose. What should I do? And she said, man, what is wrong with you? Just kiss the boy. What's wrong with you? Now, we don't kiss on the lips today, but he's 13 and we kiss all the time, and I ain't gonna stop kissing him, man. I just can't, I can't see, why do I need to? I know at church, I know this guy, him and his sons, they show up, that's probably where they meet every Sunday at church, and he's a older guy and his sons are men, and I watch them hug and kiss right in the aisle of church every single Sunday. And it's a beautiful sight to see. That level of affection that we can still have, to be emotionally touched that we can still have. All the stuff that's being robbed from us. It's like this box is holding us hostage. You know, it's holding us hostage. You know, men don't cry. Men don't express their feelings and emotions. Got to be tough, but I got to be strong. Got to be courageous. Got to be all of this stuff. And a big one is no fear. Can't be afraid. Stuff, we scared of stuff all the time. I guarantee every man in this room been scared about something at least 3 times a day. If you know, and if you agree with me, that at least 3 times a day something scared you, please raise your hand. You're a man. I appreciate the hands I see. Now, you know the hands that I don't see? You know what's the deal with them women? The things that scared them, they don't use the word scared. They use words like, oh, I was concerned about my grade. No, you wasn't concerned. You were scared. See, those are the kind of words we use to replace scared. You know, what other words do we use, men, to replace scared? I was what? I was worried. I was just a little worried. No, you were scared. We don't venture as far as I was nervous. That sounds a little too close to scared. I was a little stressed, man. I was just a little stressed out. No, you were scared, man. But we learned a long time ago that we actually supposed to demonstrate no fear. So all these movies, these are what we call man box movies, all right? They're also movies that are full of violence. Any man in this room have not seen any of those movies, please raise your hand. I got one man hasn't seen any of those movies. Appreciate you, man. Some of the men here are saying what planet that brother's on, but the truth of the matter is, in this culture, you have to do a lot of work to accomplish that. Most men in this room, for example, if you're a black man in this room, I know you've seen Training Day at least 3 times. All right? And don't laugh, white guys. I'll give you Gladiators or Braveheart. You can pick which one you want. All right? The truth of the matter is we have this fantasy with violence as men. And most of us have things that frighten us all the time, but we love to watch it and live it vicariously through other men. That's why Scarface is probably one of the greatest gangster movies of all time. Anybody here never seen the movie Scarface? Men or women, raise your hand. All right. Now I'm going to give you a gift. This is a little something from you from the rest of the people in the room. Scarface, greatest gangster movie, or one of them of all time. And there was a particular scene in the movie, it was the greatest gangster scene of all time. On the wave of my hand, y'all recite the line to that scene when he said what? Now, if you've never seen that movie before, you're probably right now saying, damn, what is wrong? How could that be? So in that scene, he was demonstrating no fear. I'm not going to even go all into the scene, folks. He was just shooting a bunch of people up that was trying to shoot him. When he should have ran and hid like me, he was out there shooting. Because this thing with no fear as men, because if you demonstrate fear, again, is a sign of weakness. It's womanlike. It's this, it's that, or the other. So, for example, how many men in the room, when you're getting ready to get in your car, and you got the clicker in your hand, how many men actually look in the back seat, check things out before they get in the car? If you're a man in the room and you do that on a regular basis, please raise your hand. That's pretty good. In the room this size, I got about 4 men. That's good. Women, how many women in the room do that on a regular basis? Please raise your hand. And keep it up for a second. Men, look around the room and number hands up. Thank you, women. Women don't tell us on a regular basis how dangerous it is living and loving us. Most of us as men will have no idea that you do that. And if we're partnered with you, you do it when you're with us too. You just peek, you take a glance, you try to protect our manhood. You don't give it the whole once over. But you're still looking because you can't help yourself. You're conditioned to look. Women don't tell us what it's like living with us, how dangerous it can be. But we as men, you know, outside those other 5 men, the rest of us have to ask ourselves questions, well, why don't I ever look? What is that about? You know, for me, it's like, look in the back seat of my car. Well, why would I look in the back seat of my car? This is Tony Porter's car. Do they know whose car this is? Hey, well, that's on them. They might as well cancel Christmas Day in the back seat of my car. That's my attitude. But that's that growing up with no fear stuff. Ain't no truth in that. There's no truth in that. All right, so I'm driving down the street, right? I look in the rearview mirror, and in the back seat, I just see somebody sit up. Come on, no fear. You kidding me? Think about it. Think about it. The man here said piss my pants. He's probably right. I'll add a little to that. I probably pee on myself and pass out simultaneously. I'll be out like this, just flowing. Come on, tell the truth. But we walk around with this whole no fear thing, which is ridiculous. Everything that we're talking about is connected to our fear of being viewed anything like a woman. We are taught, and it is drummed in us from Jump Street, to have no interest in the experience of women. We don't want to be there. We don't want to be connected to them. Outside of sex, you know, you take your mama, your grandma, your favorite auntie, and your sister, and if you're old enough, your daughter, out of the equation, and other women, for the most part, don't count. They don't count. And we're taught to have a lack of interest in whatever's happening with them. A lack of interest in the experience of women outside of sex. You take sexual intercourse out of the equation, and you take those women that are dear to your heart out of the equation, and the rest of them don't count. You can know that she was invited to that frat party, or to that off-campus party, or to that whatever party, and you can know what's going to happen tonight. You can know the guys, and you can know what's going to happen, and you will not tell her. Talking to the men. We will not tell her. I didn't teach you to tell her. I also didn't teach you to challenge them. She ain't my sister. She ain't my girl. Shit, somebody should have told her something. I don't know what to say, man. She on her own. That's our answer. There's not a woman that's physically abused that there wasn't a man who knew that man was capable of that, and we didn't challenge him. We didn't say anything. And I'm not even talking about strangers. I'm talking about our friends, our family members. We stay silent because of the lack of interest we have. Because see, if I speak up and challenge, he'll flip it back on me, won't he? Challenge my man. What's up with you? You hating? What's wrong with you? You want to? Go ahead, man. Because he can't make sense of why else would I be interested. So I must be hating. And if I'm not hating, then I must be woman like myself, because why else would I have an interest? My manhood becomes in question when I speak up on the experience of women. For example, any man in this room, go when you leave here, go to five guys you know, call home, talk to 5 of your buddies, tell them about the conversation we had tonight. And if you enjoyed it, tell them why you enjoyed it and what we talked about. I want you to think of the 5 guys right now and what the responses would be from them. Particularly guys at home. They would want to know, what's happening to you, man, up at that university? The heck are they teaching you up there? They would want to know. How many men in the room, I know they have women's studies courses here. How many men in the room are taking women's studies courses? Please raise your hand. I got about 4 or 5 men If that many. And my sports analyst here, when he raised his hand, he was kind of like giving me a half hand. Get it up there then, man. Then he had to look around to see how many hands, 'cause he's in the front of the room, right? He got to see if anybody else with him back there. There was only a few. I want you to know there was only a few, because why would I take that class? And if I walk by that classroom and there's 30 women in there and 3 men, I'm going to take a double take and come back, and now I want to make sense of it, right? I want to make sense of why those 3 guys are in that class. What comes up for me based on my socialization? They're in that class because of what? They may be gay men. They're in that class because of what? They respect women, doesn't usually come up. They're in that class because of what? Huh? Hot, good-looking girls, yeah. And then we'll give that brother a pound, you know, because we'll say, man, you in there getting 3 credits and you're meeting checks. Why didn't I think of that? When's the next class so I can sign up, right? Then that makes sense. Either they're gay or they're there to meet women. But the man here said they're there just because they have an interest in the experience of women. We don't connect with that. That makes very little sense to us as men. And as long as the interest and experience of women continues to make very little sense to us as men, then these guys here will continue to wreak havoc in our presence, in the presence of all of us good men, as long as the experience of women continues to be something that we as men, collectively speaking, continue to have a lack of interest in because we're so fearful of being defined as woman-like. As long as we, the large majority of men, continue to hold true to these crappy tenets of manhood, these guys will continue to do not only what they do in our presence, but they do it in our presence in comfort. Be shocked if we challenge them. We want to know what the heck is going on with you coming over here asking or saying anything to me. A freshman woman, first-year student, as she walks across the campus green, men see her, she's known as what? What's she known as? You can say it. Fresh meat. Fresh meat. Fresh, new, untouched, pure. Or at least nobody here hit it. I don't know how new she is, but nobody here hit it yet. Now, while you laughing, my daughter Jade will be at a university like this here in about 6 short years. Will she still be called fresh meat? Probably, yeah. And while we laugh at that, these guys over here, they just crack a big old grin and say, we're still good. We're still good. They're still with us. They might not do what we do, but they surely got our back. They're still with us. Fresh, untouched, new, pure. Ain't nobody here hit it yet. Meat. Just something to be consumed. Are we talking about a person? Are we really talking about a person? How is it that this many guys do what they do in the presence of all of us good men? We really, as men, have to begin to rethink this thing. I've already apologized to you. I'll apologize again, because everything you're doing is based on what I taught you. But what are you going to teach? What are you going to do differently? What's going to be the lessons you teach? What's going to be the message that you pass down? This is what we've taught you. Don't cry or openly express emotions, with the exception of anger. Don't show fear or weakness. Demonstrate power and control, especially over women. Be aggressive, be dominating, be the protector. Don't be like a woman. Be heterosexual, don't be like a gay man. Be tough, be courageous, be athletic. All of that stuff we can't do all the time. We can't do it all the time, but we're always faking. Put 5 men together and give them 5 minutes, and I guarantee you somebody in that group is lying. Never fails. Never fails. It never fails. Because we have an inability to be honest with each other, because we're always competing for the standards of this box. make decisions, don't need help, view women as property and the objects of men. This is some of the teaching that we've taught you. This is the stuff not only have we deconstructed, but I'm asking you men to begin the process of dismantling. What are we afraid of? Anything outside the box. Being a woman, being gay, being sensitive, being vulnerable. I am sensitive. I am vulnerable. I do get weak. I do have emotions. This box is holding us hostage. So this collective socialization teaches us to have less value in women, view them as the property of men and as objects, particularly sexual objects. We see that as an equation. Less value plus property plus objectification equals violence against women. So while you as men don't perpetrate the violence, we are, I taught you to be part of this collective socialization that's required for the violence to be what it is. It is how and why these cats get to be who they are in the presence, far, far outnumbered by all of us good men. In basic man talk, we would say something like, this many of them, this many of us, shoot, we could take them, right? That's how men think. But we're not here advocating for violence to end violence. But we are here saying that we can intervene. And I'm not necessarily saying you need to intervene by getting in the middle. That could be your choice. Sometimes that's necessary. But there are a whole host of ways to intervene. We can intervene by simply based on how we teach each other to be men. How we deconstruct, dismantle, and really deal with these issues. See, this foundation is all men. We're no longer talking about them versus us. This is all men, a part of this foundation. We don't perpetrate the violence, but we're part of the foundation that's required for the violence to exist. We are not absent of it, and we have to begin to ask ourselves, are we part of the solution, or are we part of the problem? That's my challenge to you men today. I need to ask you men to really think about where you're at. What are you going to teach? What are you going to teach? You're all teachers. What are you going to teach? Where are you at? What are you going to do differently than maybe you were doing before you came in here? I'm not asking nobody to get at a podium. If you choose to, that's wonderful. I'm not asking that, though. I'm asking what's in your heart and what changes can you make? All right? What would Janet be proud of from you and what you build in this university? What would make her proud? Kurt, can you join me up here, please? This is what I'm going to ask right now. If there's any man in this room that can connect with what Kurt and I was talking about we as men, all right? I'm going to ask you to do something different than you're probably used to doing. I'm going to ask you, if you're a man in this room and you agree with what we're saying and you can do something different or a little more, if you're already doing it, all right? I'm going to ask you to come join us on this stage or down the front of this room. I'm going to ask you to come down to the front of the room and stand with Kurt and I. We're tired of standing by ourselves. Now, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you making the decision to come down here. Hit the walls on the side, men, just come on down. I just appreciate you coming down. And there's plenty of room, as I just heard, up on the stage. I appreciate you standing up. I appreciate we got some man box stuff going on here. We always got stuff going on, man. It's all right, though. It's not all bad. You know, actually, there are some wonderful, wonderful, absolutely wonderful things about being a man. It just doesn't mean that at the same token that we don't have our work cut out for us. So I don't want to shortchange the fact that, there are wonderful things about being a man. And we as men, you as young men, you have learned some wonderful things about manhood. I also want to say, though, that if you've come down here to the front of the room, this has moved away from being about me to being about you. So while you're down here at the front of the room, you know, when you go back and you're laughing at the same old jokes that you know, you should be telling them to stop telling instead of laughing. I mean, you know. You know that those jokes that you're laughing at support the environment of violence, right? And you know. We're talking about a new kind of courage, right? You heard me when I mentioned to Kurt and Miss Christine about that type of violence, that type of courage. We're talking about a different kind of courage stepping outside this man box. It's a different kind of courage. We say we're fearless. This is a different type of courage. So as you stand here, when you leave here, is to thy own self be true. So if you go back and you still doing the same stuff, you know, you might not remember everything we said in this room tonight, but you remember you were standing at the front of the room on the stage, and you said you was going to try to be about something a little different. So I want you to keep that in mind. And there's one more thing I want to do. There's one more thing I want to do while I got you down here. We have a couple of women here, one who's currently in your university and one who's alumni at your university, going to have what we call last words. They're not going to take a lot of time, but they're going to give us a few marching orders. We think it would be appropriate for women to have the last word. They've sat patiently and listened to us, so we're going to ask these two women to speak on behalf of the women.
So Tony said to just talk about our reactions to this and as women, what we think you can do to break out of the man box and stop the violence. And I guess I would say, Tony, you put it really well, that think about the jokes that you laugh at, the jokes that you make, and the language that you use, the words that you choose when you say that you raped that video game, things like that. Think about what that means and what that might mean to the people around you and what that says about what you're condoning. Even if that's not what you mean by it. Someone might be taking it that way and assuming that you think that what they're doing is okay when you certainly don't.
And I would just say that you have a lot of amazing resources at this university. We're all really lucky to be at KU and in this community because there are great things going on and there are lots of amazing men doing amazing things on this campus. So I would just encourage you to Google the Emily Taylor Women's Resource Center and check out the Commission on the Status of Women. It's a student organization, men or women involved. They do tons of different kinds of things and they're always open to new ideas and projects. And so get involved on the campus. And I'd also say, just on a personal level, the best thing you can do is be a good friend to the women in your life. Listen to them, trust them, talk to them, believe them when they seek out your help, and just keep an eye on them and keep an eye on your friends. And together we can all be better friends to each other.
This is overwhelming. I hope it moved you like it has moved me. Can you give Tony and all these men a round of applause for coming forward? I want to follow Tony's comments to say, don't leave tonight without committing to making a difference, to doing one thing different. Thank you all for coming this evening. Please, a round of applause.